His fingers were intertwined with mine as we walked through the crowd, and I remember thinking how safe I looked, how loyal I appeared. Daniel's hand was warm, steady, the kind of touch that told the world we were happy. But what the world did not see was that just 24 hours earlier, another man's hands had been on me in a way that no one's ever should have been. I smiled for the cameras at the charity event that evening, my husband's arm proudly wrapped around my waist. Every flash of light reminded me of the night before, the whispered breath against my ear, the scent of someone else's skin, and the silent storm brewing inside me. I stood beside my husband while my heart hid in another man's bed. Before we begin this story, I want to take a moment to appreciate every one of you watching. To all my subscribers, thank you so much for the love, the support, and the energy you continue to bring to this channel. And to my new viewers and returning ones who have not yet subscribed, I truly cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button right now. It is the fuel that keeps me going. Remember to share your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. I read them all. Now, let us begin. My name is Jessica Morgan, and I am 32 years old. On the outside, I had everything I thought I ever wanted: a faithful husband, a comfortable home in Atlanta, Georgia, and a life that looked almost perfect. Daniel, my husband, was kind, patient, and good. The kind of man who opened doors, remembered birthdays, and still called his mother every Sunday. But sometimes, good can start to feel invisible. Our marriage had been beautiful in its early years: movie nights, long drives, late-night talks about the future. But somewhere between building careers and chasing stability, we stopped touching each other's hearts. Our words became schedules. Our laughter became memories. Daniel's work as an architect often kept him late. I understood at first, but understanding slowly turned into distance. I began to fill my quiet evenings with scrolling through my phone, pretending not to care that the other side of the bed was always cold. That was around the time I met Noah. He was new at the marketing firm where I worked as a senior consultant, confident, funny, and dangerously charming. He had this way of making every conversation feel like a secret. The first time we met, it was in the office break room. I spilled coffee on my blouse, and he handed me a napkin with that smile, the kind that carries trouble in disguise. Our friendship started innocently. We shared jokes, work frustrations, playlists, and lunch breaks. But beneath every laugh was tension, an invisible thread pulling tighter each day. Daniel would often text me in the evenings, asking if I would be home for dinner. Sometimes I said yes. Sometimes I said I had to stay late at work. Both statements were lies in different ways, because even when I was home, part of me was already drifting elsewhere. The first time Noah and I crossed the line, it was during an after-hours meeting. Everyone had left except us. The office lights were dim, the city lights glowing through the glass windows. He leaned closer to show me a presentation, and when his hand brushed against mine, neither of us moved away. It was not a kiss at first. It was a stare, a moment too long, a breath too close. And then it happened. His lips met mine, soft but certain, like he had been waiting for it all along. I remember my heart pounding, not from romance, but from the sheer panic of what I was doing. When we pulled apart, we both said nothing. The silence was heavier than the act itself. I gathered my things and left, my legs trembling. That night, Daniel greeted me at the door with his usual warmth. He had made dinner, poured wine, and asked how my day was. I lied again. It should have ended there. But secrets are like fires. Once they start, they spread fast. I told myself I could control it. That it was just attraction. But the truth is, I liked how Noah made me feel, seen, desired, alive. He would send messages during work, ones that made me blush and look around to ensure no one saw. I would delete them before heading home, practicing my smiles in the car mirror so Daniel would not notice anything. The affair continued quietly, secretly. Lunches became late-night drives. Meetings became stolen hours. Every touch from Noah felt like adrenaline, dangerous, intoxicating. Yet every time Daniel reached for my hand, guilt shot through me like lightning. There was one evening that haunts me the most. Daniel had surprised me with tickets to a local charity gala. He spent the entire week talking about it, excited to finally do something romantic again. I said yes, but inside, I was somewhere else, with someone else. That morning, before the gala, Noah and I met at his apartment. I told myself it would be the last time. It was not. When he held me, everything else disappeared: responsibilities, morality, my wedding ring. I left his place feeling both wanted and worthless. Hours later, I stood beside Daniel at the event, dressed in elegance, the perfect wife in public. When he took my hand and kissed it before the cameras, my chest tightened. His touch was gentle, sincere, filled with love I no longer deserved. And in that moment, I realized how cruel I had become. I was betraying the man who still looked at me like I was everything he had ever prayed for. That night, after we returned home, Daniel thanked me for coming with him. He said it meant a lot. I smiled and told him it did for me too, another lie layered on top of dozens more. I went to bed beside him, unable to sleep. Every sound in that house echoed my guilt: the ticking clock, the hum of the air conditioner, the rhythm of his breathing. I looked at his hand resting near mine and thought about how easily I could reach out. How one small gesture could start healing something I had broken. But I did not. Because deep down, I knew I had already gone too far. That was the night I fully understood it. He held my hand in public, but I was holding another man in secret. And sooner or later, one of those hands would have to let go. It is strange how easily a person can learn to live two lives. By day, I was Daniel's loving wife, the woman who laughed at his jokes, kissed him goodbye in the mornings, and sat beside him at dinner pretending nothing had changed. But once the sun went down, I was someone else entirely. Someone reckless, secretive, and starving for something I could not even name. Every morning began the same way. Daniel's alarm would buzz at 6:30, and he would lean over to kiss my forehead before heading to the shower. I would lie there, eyes open, heart heavy, staring at the ceiling. His touch felt different now, not because he had changed, but because I had. Every affection from him reminded me of what I was hiding. I told myself the guilt would fade with time. It did not. It simply became part of my daily routine, like brushing my teeth, like packing my bag for work. I learned how to mask it with smiles, with perfectly timed laughter, with the kind of lies that sound harmless when spoken sweetly. Noah and I continued our affair as if it were some secret world only we understood. At work, we exchanged glances across the office floor. In the parking lot, we shared moments so brief yet so charged that my pulse would not calm down for hours. There was always the thrill of almost being caught, the electricity of danger running through my veins. One Friday evening, Daniel called me from home. His voice sounded warm and unsuspecting. He said he was ordering Thai food and asked if I wanted my usual dish. I told him I would be home soon, that I was wrapping up a project at work. In reality, I was in Noah's car, parked behind an old warehouse 2 blocks from the office. When Noah kissed me that night, I felt the weight of everything collapsing, but I refused to stop. His touch was wild and intoxicating, and for those moments, I could pretend that I was someone free, someone unbound by promises or vows. I convinced myself that what Daniel did not know could not hurt him. That lie would not last much longer. The following week, Daniel began to notice things. Little things. I came home smelling like a perfume I did not own, one that Noah had bought for me. I claimed it was a sample from a client. Daniel smiled, but I saw a flicker of confusion in his eyes. Then there were the late nights, the sudden mood swings, the way I pulled my phone closer whenever it buzzed. One evening, I found him sitting in the living room with my phone in his hand. He was not snooping, at least, not yet. He was only trying to hand it to me after it rang. But my heart almost stopped when I saw Noah's name flash on the screen. I snatched the phone so fast it startled him. He looked at me with gentle concern and asked if everything was all right. I nodded, forcing a shaky smile. That was when I saw the doubt begin to form in his expression. A few days later, Noah began to change too. What started as passion had turned into possession. He grew impatient, constantly asking when I would tell Daniel the truth, when we could finally be together without hiding. His questions frightened me because I had no answers. I never wanted to leave my husband, not truly. I only wanted to feel alive again. But Noah wanted more. He started texting me late into the night, sometimes when Daniel was right beside me. I silenced my phone and turned it face down, pretending I was asleep. Every vibration under my pillow felt like a warning bell. My heart beat so fast I thought Daniel could hear it. One morning, as Daniel and I had breakfast together, he stared at me for a long moment before saying softly, "You have been distant lately." I froze. The spoon in my hand trembled. I told him it was just stress from work, that I needed some rest. He nodded, but his eyes said he did not believe me. That silent look pierced deeper than any argument could have. From that day, our home felt different. The warmth was fading, replaced by a quiet unease. He began checking in more often, calling during the day, asking about my schedule. I told myself he was only being caring, but deep down, I knew he was trying to confirm something. Then, one evening, it happened. I was in the kitchen, cooking dinner, when my phone buzzed on the counter. Daniel was sitting nearby, scrolling through his laptop. I wiped my hands and reached for the phone, but he was faster. He picked it up and glanced at the screen before I could stop him. His face changed instantly. It was a message from Noah. It read, "I missed last night. I cannot wait to feel you again." The silence that followed was the loudest sound I had ever heard. Daniel looked at me, and for a long moment, he said nothing. His eyes filled with disbelief, confusion, and heartbreak all at once. Then, without a word, he placed the phone on the counter and walked out of the kitchen. I stood there frozen, my heart hammering against my ribs. I wanted to call after him, to explain, to lie my way out of it somehow. But there was nothing left to say. The truth had already screamed louder than anything I could invent. That night, I barely slept. Daniel did not come to bed. He stayed in the guest room, the door locked. The house felt unfamiliar, as if the walls themselves were disappointed in me. The next morning, when I tried to speak to him, his voice was calm but cold. He told me he needed time to think, and that he could not even look at me without feeling sick. I wanted to cry, to beg, to promise it would never happen again. But I knew that promises meant nothing now. I had broken the one that mattered most. Over the next few days, Noah kept calling, asking what happened, urging me to meet. I ignored most of his calls. Whatever I thought we had now felt hollow. It was no longer excitement, it was destruction. The guilt had finally caught up with me, and it was relentless. Daniel barely spoke to me. We still lived under the same roof, but our worlds were separate now, his filled with quiet pain, mine filled with silent regret. I could feel the end approaching, even before he said the words. And when he finally did, it shattered what was left of my heart. He said, "I loved you more than I have ever loved anyone. But I cannot share you with another man." It was then that I realized the full weight of what I had done, how a few moments of pleasure had poisoned everything pure in my life. By the end of that week, Daniel had packed his bags and moved into a hotel. The house that once felt like home became an empty shell of broken promises and echoes of laughter that would never return. I was left standing in the kitchen, staring at my phone, the same phone that had carried my lies, my secrets, and my downfall. Noah called again that night. I did not answer. Because by then, I understood something too late. When you hold one man's hand in public while holding another in secret, you end up losing both. It had been 4 days since Daniel left the house, but it felt like a lifetime. Every hour without him stretched into an eternity of silence and regret. The house that once echoed with laughter now felt like a graveyard of broken promises. His toothbrush still sat by the sink, his jacket still hung by the door, quiet reminders of a man who used to trust me completely. I tried calling him the first 2 nights, but he never answered. By the third, I stopped trying. I told myself he only needed time, but deep down, I knew time could not fix this. There are some wounds that heal, and there are others that simply scar over and remind you forever of what you destroyed. I spent those nights replaying everything in my mind. Every text I sent to Noah. Every lie I told Daniel. Every time I looked him in the eyes and pretended I was still his loyal wife. It was like watching my own downfall in slow motion. On the 5th day, Daniel came home. I heard his car pull into the driveway, and my heart immediately began to pound. I stood by the kitchen counter, trembling, unsure if I should run to him or hide. When he opened the door, he looked different, colder, more distant. His eyes were tired, and there was no trace of the man who used to smile when he saw me. He walked past me without a word and set his suitcase down in the hallway. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was heavier than any argument could have been. Finally, I broke it. "Daniel, please," I said softly. "Can we talk?" He looked at me, really looked at me, and there was something final in his expression. "There is nothing left to talk about, Jessica," he said quietly. "You made your choice. You chose him." Tears stung my eyes. It was a mistake. I swear it meant nothing. He shook his head. "You do not destroy a marriage for something that means nothing." Those words hit me harder than any scream could have. I tried to reach for him, but he stepped back, his face tightening in pain. "Do not," he said. "Do not touch me." He walked into the living room, sat down, and stared out the window. I followed him, desperate, my voice trembling as I spoke. "Daniel, please. I love you." I was lost. I was stupid. I do not even know why I. He interrupted sharply. "Do not say you love me. Because if you did, you would not have done this." My chest felt heavy. I wanted to collapse, to disappear, to rewind everything to the day before I met Noah. But life does not hand out do-overs. It only teaches through consequences. Daniel stood up and turned toward me. "How long?" he asked. His voice was steady, but his hands were clenched at his sides. I hesitated, my lips trembling. "A few months." He nodded slowly, almost as if he had expected it. Was it only him? The question stabbed through me. "Yes," I whispered. "Only him." Daniel looked away, his jaw tightening. "Do you know what hurts the most, Jessica?" he asked softly. "It is not the cheating itself. It is that you came home to me every night, smiled at me, kissed me, and still managed to sleep beside me as if nothing was wrong. That is what kills me." My knees felt weak. I wanted to fall to the floor and beg, but I knew nothing I could say would undo the damage. He had seen too much, felt too much, lost too much. Then, almost as if he had been holding it in for days, his voice cracked. "I would have given you everything. I did give you everything. And all you had to do was stay loyal." He walked away from me, went upstairs, and began pulling clothes from the closet. The sound of hangers clattering and drawers opening echoed through the house. I followed him up, tears running down my face. "Please, do not do this," I cried. "We can fix it. I will do anything." He turned around, his eyes filled with exhaustion. "You broke something that cannot be fixed. Every time I look at you, I will see him. Every time you touch me, I will remember what you did. How can I live like that?" I had no answer. He finished packing and zipped his bag. As he walked past me, he paused at the doorway. His voice was low, but steady. "I am not angry anymore, Jessica. I am just done." Those words cut deeper than any anger could. When he left, the sound of the door closing felt like the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. I stood in the silence, surrounded by the ghosts of everything we used to be. A few hours later, Noah called. I stared at the phone, his name glowing on the screen. I felt nothing but disgust, not for him, but for myself. I answered anyway. "Noah," I said weakly. He sounded cautious. What happened? You have not been responding. Daniel found out, I said flatly. He is gone. There was a pause. Then he sighed, almost annoyed. I told you it would happen eventually. His tone, so casual, so detached, hit me like a slap. I realized then that I had risked my entire marriage for a man who never cared whether I lost it or not. He continued, maybe it is for the best. We can finally be together without all the hiding. I felt my stomach twist. You think that is what I want? I said quietly. Is it not? He asked. No, I whispered. Not anymore. I hung up and blocked his number. It was the first decision I had made in months that felt right, but it came far too late. That night, I sat alone in our bedroom. The scent of Daniel's cologne still lingered on the sheets, a cruel reminder of the man who had loved me through everything until I gave him a reason not to. I spent hours staring at the wedding picture on the dresser, the smiles, the spark in our eyes, the way his hand rested protectively on my waist. I remembered that day, the vows we made, the promises I shattered. Days turned into weeks. Daniel never came back. He filed for divorce quietly, without drama or discussion. When the papers arrived, I signed them with trembling hands. People often say time heals everything. But the truth is, time only teaches you how to live with the scars you created. I still see him sometimes, driving through the neighborhood or standing in line at the grocery store. He does not look at me anymore. He just walks past, as if I am a stranger, and maybe that is what I am now. Noah moved to another city a few months later. I heard he is seeing someone new. I do not feel jealous, only hollow. Because I know that the love I had, the one that was pure and safe, will never come again. I chose pleasure over loyalty. I chose excitement over peace. And in doing so, I lost the only man who ever truly loved me. Now, I live with that truth every single day. It sits with me at breakfast, follows me to work, whispers to me in the dark when the house is too quiet. It is the reminder of what happens when you hold one man's hand in public while holding another in secret. Eventually, both hands will let go, and you will be left holding nothing at all.